Welcome to day 22 of the CRaFTi Advent series. In today's video I am showing you how to use alcohol inks on your jelly plate. And the way to do that is using some hand sanitizer. You want to use one of the ones that's clear in colour just in case you can get like orange scented ones that are orange in colour or strawberry that are more of a pinky colour. So make sure you pick one that's more of a natural scent, so it's going to be a clear colour. And then literally all you do is squeeze some out, just like I did there, onto your jelly plate, whatever size jelly plate you want to use. And I just spread it out with my finger just so the whole surface of the plate is covered in at least a thin layer of the gel. And then you simply just drop on your colours of alcohol inks. And I'm using Copic Refils. I've got YG07, BG15, B29, and I think I used a little bit of B05 as well. Any alcohol inks you have, you can use the Ranger Tim Holtz ones as well. I just decided to invest in some Copic Refils because it's cheaper than buying the alcohol inks, and you can use them to refill your Copics too. So that's why I did that. And on the backgrounds, I did 3 with just like using the first print off of the small round jelly plate, and then instead of wasting the rest of the ink that was left on the jelly plate, I then kept stamping off from each of the 3 different impressions onto a 4th piece of card, so I have 4 backgrounds to use. It's just a way of not wasting the excess ink and getting an extra bonus background out as well. I think when I originally released this video too, somebody said that one was their favourite, having the like the 2nd generation prints all over the background. So it's a great way just to make an extra background. So now, while I was rambling, I started stamping these gorgeous laurel branches. They're called the layered laurel stamp set from Altenew. And I'm using 4 colours because there's 4 layers for each of the 2 different branches. And I'm using the Aladdin Ink dye ink pads. And I was using Menthe, Emerald, Petrol and Ocean, in case you're wondering about the colours. And I was just following the guide of how to stamp them. I'm not sure if it was on... Yes, the guide is on the back of the packet for that one, which makes it so much easier because you don't have to go and look online to try and find which order you're supposed to stamp them in. Not that it really matters, especially with something like this. It doesn't really matter if you switch up which one you stamp in the lightest or the darkest colour. It still looks perfect once you've finished it. And you saw me switching out the piece of card, so I'm actually stamping 2 at the same time, so I've got 4 branches in total, and then I'm just going to use 1 of them on each of the cards. If you wanted to, you could like repeat this with 4 pieces of cards and then 4 pieces of card, and then you could have 2 of the branches on each card, but it just depends how much of the background you want to cover up and everything. And the large one is quite big, so I think just having 1 of them on the card fits nicely. I'm also using the Tim Holtz stamp platform as well. That's the original one. I don't think the mini one was out when I filmed this video. But anyway, so you can see how the backgrounds have dried. Oh yeah, and alcohol inks dry by evaporation anyway, and so does hand sanitizer. That's why when you put it on your hands it feels wet, and then all of a sudden your hands feel dry because the solvent's evaporated. So it's exactly the same process when you're using it onto card as well. Literally just leave them to the side whilst the solvent all evaporates, and then it really doesn't take a long time for them to dry. And you can just tell, if you feel the back of the card, it will still feel a bit cold if it's wet, so just wait until it's dried off. I'm adding heat embossing over the top of these backgrounds, so you might want to leave them to dry overnight. I think I might have left them to dry overnight, I can't actually remember, but that will just minimise this, like the amount of excess powder that will stick to any of the alcohol ink areas. You can use the, just as I was using there, the anti-static powder tool as well, which really helps eliminate that too. But you know, just leaving them to dry for an extra day can be really useful too, especially if you're doing batches of cards as well. Doing them all ahead of time and in more of a production line style really helps make it quicker too. So for these cards I'm using some of the CRaFTi Potential background stamps. This one's the Fleur De Lis, which is my favourite. and I'm just inking up part of the stamp and then just pressing in that random area, and then I'm taking, once I've tipped on the embossing powder, I'm taking a dry paintbrush and just brushing off any excess areas that I don't want the powder to stick to. If you're doing this kind of technique, you want to make sure you're using a fairly new embossing ink pad, or at least one that's definitely still clean, so that when you're stamping your image, you're going to get a clean, clear image, so then if you brushed away some of the powder, you wouldn't be able to tell that the image was still below it, if that makes sense. You also want to make sure your stamp's clean, otherwise it can happen that way too. And then I use that square circle one for the side of that card, and I use the watercolour background for the first one as well, just to add a little bit of texture over the top of all of those second generation prints. Then I felt like I needed to balance out that silver on the card, so I'm using the Nuvo embossing pen and just literally just drawing on a few circles, as if I'd splattered it really. And actually you can, if you're quick with the process, you can splat on a bit of water and then tip on your embossing powder and tip the excess off and heat it, and that does work too. So, you know, if you didn't have an embossing pen, that's another way of getting that kind of look as well. And it also gives more of an organic look as well, because you're actually flicking it on. So for the sentiments, I'm using some of the sentiment stamps that are in that layered Laurel stamp set by Altenew. And I'm just piecing together the different sentiments. I think I used Have a Lovely Day on one of them, and maybe Have an Amazing Time on the other one. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the end. And again, I'm heat embossing these with the same silver powder, and the powder I'm using is, I think it's called Classic, oh no it's not, it's called Silver Shine, and it's the detail embossing powder from Cosmic Shimmer. It's a really nice, well, detail powder, because that's in the name, but it really picks up like small, thin, stamped lines as well, which is really great. Yeah, I did have a lovely time and have an amazing day. I like that kind of sentiment because it's quite generic. You know, it could be have a lovely time on your holiday, or it could be have an amazing day on your birthday, you know. Then I'm just die cutting them all with a stitched rectangle die. My favourite size of stitched rectangle is 4 by 5 1/4, and you're probably fed up with me saying that because I think I've said it in like 10 of the Advent videos. But people always ask, so it's probably better to say it. And I'm using the Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and a few days ago I put up my unboxing video of the Deep Sea die cutting machine from Spellbinders and Jane Davenport, which is basically identical to the Platinum 6, but it's just really pretty. So I'm just trimming down my sentiments, and I know, well, in the past I've been like, oh, I can't cut a straight line because it's, you know, it always goes off wonky, so I've always tried to use my guillotine, but sometimes when you're doing a sentiment like these ones with all the scripty bits and everything, it can be tricky to get the line in the right place when you're using a guillotine. So what I tend to do now that really helps is those long scissors you see off to the right. They're the Tim Holtz shears from Tonic. They are brilliant for cutting any sentiment banner, or you know, I like using my Dymo tape as well, cutting that to be a narrower strip too. They're brilliant because having that long blade on it means you're going to get a straight cut. Like, as long as you commit to the cut, you're going to get a proper straight line. It's not going to go off at a wonky angle like if you were using these smaller scissors I'm using now to try and cut a long straight line. But the smaller scissors are brilliant for fussy cutting. I think I've uploaded my top tips fussy cutting video to this channel now, but yeah, in that I just go through sort of my thought process behind how I fussy cut really. And these laurel branches are actually pretty easy to cut out. They look like they might be a bit complicated, but once you get started on it, it's really, really simple to cut out. And I'm pretty sure Altenew probably do the coordinating dies as well. I always tend to I always think, well, you know, the amount of times I'm probably going to use the stamp set, I think I'd rather buy another stamp set than a die set. But it's up to you really. If you don't like fussy cutting and you'd use the stamp set a lot of times, then getting the dies is a good investment then. I really love those 4 colours together of the Ink dye inks. You could use distress inks as well, especially if you're using the stamping platform, because distress inks don't stamp that great by themselves, because that's not what they're designed to do. But if you're using a stamping platform, you can stamp the same layer multiple times in exactly the same place, so you can easily build up the ink. So like when I started out, I didn't have any coloured ink pads except for 10 distress inks that I treated myself to, and you know, so I did all of my stamping with distress inks, and there wasn't, I don't think a stamp platform even existed then, and I was still happy with the results just stamping them straight away. So it just depends what you have really, and yeah, I think when you're starting out, getting the basics like distress inks is really great, because the distress inks, you can use them dry and ink blend them onto a surface. You can use them wet and make a watercolour-y look, but you can still stamp with them, or you can even watercolour in with them as well. I don't know why I've gone off on a tangent and I'm talking about distress inks now, but anyway. So I'm literally just assembling the rest of the card now, using foam tape to raise up the sentiment and the laurel branch on each card as well. And in most cases I'm just sort of using the curve of the laurel branch to sort of follow the curve of the circular jelly print element as well. It just kind of makes the card flow a bit nicer if they're following the same like direction. I'm just trimming down my card blanks. I've said that in multiple videos, that I just mark on my trimmer the size I usually like to cut them to. It just makes it so much easier and quicker. And then I'm adding double-sided tape around the perimeter and then one diagonally across the centre. And I also use a little bit of glue in the corners as well, just to make sure it stays stuck. I especially do this when I've been, like, say I've done a watercolour-y background, or I've used watercolour card or something heavier. You definitely want to add that extra glue to the corners, just to make sure it's not going to pop up or like start falling off of the card blank. I used to always use double-sided tape that I'd gotten from Poundland, because I thought, oh, I'm not going to spend $2.99 a roll of tape. I'm going to get 4 rolls for £1, but it really is worth getting better quality double-sided tape, because practically every single card I made then now has awful yellow tape lines where like the acid in the tape has leaked through, and same with like old projects for school and stuff. Everything's like ruined because it's just got orange or yellowy tape lines coming through it. But anyway, it depends how long you want people to keep your cards for, really. Well, this is another one of my favourite things that I haven't done in a while, but I like to use sequins and little tiny gems as well, mixed in with each other. I think it gives a really cool effect. And even sticking the tiny gem in the centre of the sequin looks really nice too. And the little silver gems that I'm putting on now, they're just from Hobbycraft, because you get that massive sheet for £1. That background where I've done this one, where I've done lots of the secondary prints, it kind of looks like bubbles. Gives that sort of effect. If you had different sized circular jelly plates, you could do that and give a cool bubble look. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and seeing it this time round with a little bit of explanation over the top. It kind of makes it more into a tutorial, but I did go off on a few tangents. But anyway, so thank you for watching day 22, and I will see you again tomorrow for day 23. Bye!